want to get myself into a bit of trouble. So if I can just strike and then kind of go through contact, yeah, I know that if I'm getting through the ball, it's usually going to go towards the target. Just straight away, I know that once I've placed the ball and I'm happy with where it's aiming, just go into my breathing straight away. So I guess for me, one of the big things with my process is just my breathing. So when I'm first kind of have placed the ball and go up to start my run up, I kind of just try and reset with a breath. And then I guess one thing that I learnt from, probably missing a couple of big kicks, a few years ago is probably my mind was wandering a little bit around, the outcome. And so for me now, I have the same breathing that I do for each kick. And if I'm, my mind's wandering, I can reset myself, I guess, throughout the process with my breathing and looking at the target. Pretty shattering at the time and took a little while to get over, but I think probably just, reminding myself, like, believe it or not, growing up, like I don't actually remember missing a kick to win a game ever until the Bledisloe when it hit the post. So like I'd nailed, 15, 20 plus growing up, through schoolboys, 20s, all sorts of situations. And then even a couple with the Rebels. I think I remember 2 against the Brumbies in 2017. 2016. So for me, it was just reminding myself that I've done it all before, and it's a bit of a cliche. It doesn't define me as a player, and I know that I can step up in big moments. Yeah. So usually, whether it's warming up before a game or sort of Tuesday, Friday, my big kicking days, I usually just warm up with a couple of kind of flow kicks. I'll just put it down, take a few steps back on the angle, not really fuss where I go, and then basically my whole focus here is just trying to get through the ball. So I know when I start pulling away to the left or leaning back is when I get myself into a bit of trouble. So if I can just strike and then kind of go through contact, yeah, I know that if I'm getting through the ball, it's usually going to go towards the target. Just momentum through the ball. So yeah, just making sure all my energy is going towards the target rather than pulling away. Yeah, I've played around with a couple of low tees before, but I don't know if it's just like my long levers and skinny legs, but I feel like I just like a bit of space under the ball to be able to get a cleaner strike. And I don't know, I just found it's worked for me over the years. When it's a bit further out and if it's really challenging my distance, or even if it's a bit windy, I like to kind of get a little bit of a more horizontal angle, or just feel like it flies through the air a bit cleaner and a little bit further. I don't know if it's actually the case or it's just what it feels like. And then I've also played around with, I don't know, a few of the kickers, like Owen Farrell obviously has it pretty upright on the tee and stuff like that. But I just find for me the most consistent strike is kind of that 45-degree angle, and it's hard to replicate it every single time, but it's more of a feel thing when it's on the tee and with my eye. From a young age, I got taught that the heaviest part of the ball is the valve, especially on these match balls. So balls that don't have the valve, not so much, but I always got taught that the heaviest part of the ball goes on the bottom and the ball flies truer and further. I don't know if that's just a myth or something that's actually true, but something that I've always done. So if I had the valve sitting up like that, it'd just feel uncomfortable to me. Obviously, usually playing in stadiums, I'm kind of picking something out that's like an immovable object in the stand behind the post. So depending on the wind and how far out I am, it's usually straight in the middle of the post, and I'll pick something out and kind of visualise the ball heading towards that target. One thing, I think it was Mick Byrne who kind of said it to me early on when he was coaching at the Wallabies, is kind of from 35 in, don't really need to take the wind into consideration for me, because the ball flight and then anything further out, that's when I kind of start to adjust a little bit more for the winds. If it was going right to left, I might be aiming at something behind the right post and letting the wind work the ball into the middle of the post or something like that. So I'm now like 5 steps back on the angle. I don't know if it's the 45 or it's just more of a feel thing once again. When I was younger, I used to be kind of 4 back, 3 across, and then play around with a few things like that, but kind of just what feels right for me, at the moment, the last few years. So kind of get nice and close to the ball, over the ball, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I guess based on feel in the moment, I can adjust, one left or right. So for me, I know that if I'm pulling the ball left consistently, it usually means that I'm kind of too square onto the ball. So I'll try and kind of come around a little bit to the left, just to give myself a bit more room to get through the ball without kind of tugging my leg around. And then vice versa, if I'm pushing everything to the right, maybe I'm kind of too side onto the ball and I'm not actually getting my leg through the targets. Within a game as well, or within a training session, if there's a bit of a trend with where I'm missing it or where the ball's going, that's kind of what I'll play around with. So for me, my two, I guess a two-way miss is probably not a good thing like in golf, but yeah, there's probably two distinct ones for me. Is usually I'm tugging it, hitting it really sweetly, but tugging it just left. As I talked about before, that's usually when I'm just a little too square onto the ball, and that's when my leg starts to kind of come around the ball rather than through towards the target. Just taking into consideration how close my kind of plant leg is to the ball. So if I'm real close, I don't have time to actually, lock my leg out. Usually vice versa, if I'm too far away, that's when my leg comes in too early, and that's when I get that hook or pull. So they're just things, I guess, of years of kicking you kind of learn on the run, and a lot of kickers are kind of their own worst critic and coach themselves. So just adapt those on the run, and hopefully the result comes. I think it just comes back to practice and a body of work over a number of years, like knowing that I practice sort of up to 60 metres and know that depending on conditions I've usually got that without trying to push it too hard. In the moment sometimes it is tough to, when you're looking up from sort of 57 out and you're thinking, gee, it's a long way, it's tough to kind of trick your mind into not over kicking and trying to give it everything. But I know personally, like when I kick at 90% effort, I actually strike the ball just as far as if I try to give it a big hoof. So, yeah, so I just feel with the trajectory of the kick, like I know if my ball's kind of sailing like forward through there rather than straight up straight away, that's kind of when I'm striking it the best. So it's a drill we used to do at the Wallabies with actually punt kicks. So the aim was to get it over the 40 metre, and if you could get it sort of 7 or 8 metres back from the crossbar, under the crossbar into the 40 metre, that was kind of the aim to just improve your strike and get that penetration through the air. So I kind of adapted it into my goal kicking, and I just know like if I'm hitting the crossbar or under the crossbar and it's getting out over the 40 metre, sometimes I do it into the net. That's when I'm hitting the ball nicely. So it's just a good kind of drill just for me to, I guess, take stock of how my strikes are going, and something that I often do on a Monday just to feel a bit on ball again. There you go. Especially on angle kicks, with kicks straight on, it's kind of easy to, I guess, gauge whether you've followed through or you've pulled to the side. But I think for me on angle kicks, say if I'm at the back of my mark here on the angle, for me, I'm kind of picking a spot in the grass, like directly, I guess, behind my approach to the ball, and like kind of just having that in my mind. I know that I'm not actually going to follow through to the right of the tee, but if I can have that as my aim, that's going to keep me a bit straighter than, say, if I was aiming here to follow through to here, I might kind of fall off to the left a little bit, 2 or 3 steps after the kick rather than stopping at impact. Over the years I've done a lot of sort of sessions with kids, coaching them, and they love to kick, and you see so many of them go kick the ball and then they kind of fall back like that. The real important thing is to kind of kick, and then you want to just kind of follow through at least a couple steps towards the target. There's that dreaded block to the right, just got too close to the ball. Just in the sweet spot there where you can get your leg kind of through is where you want to be. I feel like I was a little bit too close to the ball and my leg just kind of couldn't lock out in time. So that's when you kind of get that block right, and it just didn't feel that great off the boot. Kind of that adjustment I'm talking about, like in session, like I feel like my steps there were just maybe a tiny bit further back. So I just give myself a little bit more space at the ball, which hopefully should even out the strike a little bit. So that's an overcorrection. So I blocked the first one, came a little bit further back on the run up on the last one, and just felt like I was reaching for the ball, and that's when you kind of get that little bit of a pull left. So hopefully this one can adjust and bang it straight down the middle. Yeah, so I like the pink. I don't know, I just think it feels good when I'm looking. I don't know if it's these like light blue balls, and maybe I'm a man in touch with my emotions. So I guess I'll start off with internationals, and the luxury of that is that you're playing Saturday week to week, apart from the game we played on Thursday against the All Blacks this year. So you can have a consistent kind of schedule week to week. So for me, we obviously play Saturday, bit of a recovery day Sunday, and then Monday with my kickings when I like to do that flow sessions. A lot of it would be into a net or kind of, within 20, 30 metres. Strike, and then kind of go through contact into the net, just punt both sides, so right and left. So whilst I don't really use my left too much in the game, I just find like sometimes you can make little corrections based on what you're doing on your left that kind of technically is very sound that you can kind of apply to your rights. Punts and drop kicks into the net, left and right footed, depending on the day, it'll usually be kind of, I don't know, 6 to 8 each side of both of those, and then I'll just do maybe between 5 and 10 flow kicks off the tee, which is basically similar to what I was doing in the crossbar drill before, just kind of jogging into the ball. Between sort of 40 and 60% effort. Not trying to kick it too hard, just trying to get my follow through and momentum through the ball, and that's kind of a trigger that heads into the rest of my week. So Tuesday for me, in units, we do quite a bit of kicking, contextual kicking, how it relates to the game, and then post-session I'll do my penalty, line kicks for touch, kick-offs, basically what we're trying to kick off that week. So whether it's, deep right, short left, it'll be kind of skewed in towards what the plan is for that week. Thursday, I don't usually kick that much, just whatever I get in the session, and then Friday on Captain's Run Day is a big kicking day for me. I kind of repeat Tuesday through once again, usually at the stadium that we're playing at. Like to feel good heading into the game on a Saturday, and then in the warm-up before a game, I'll just kind of do a very abbreviated version of what I do on Tuesday and Friday. It's just making sure I got nice contact on the ball, and I guess there's been situations where we've rocked up late to a game and been a bit more rushed than usual. So I think you can't get too hung up on have to do this, have to do that. Some guys are very superstitious, but as long as I just get at least a couple of punts in, a couple of drop kicks and a couple of kicks, like I'm fine. Having a lot of 5 and 6 day turnarounds, that sometimes you have to kind of mix and match and pick your moments. Whether you might not. You might not kick as much at the start of the week when you're trying to recover, and then have a bigger back end of the week, or vice versa. If you've got an 8 or 9 day turnaround, you might front end it a little bit more when you're feeling fresh. I think left foot kicking. So obviously most people have a dominant foot, and I think especially with short attacking kicks, it's just so useful having a left foot grubber, like you've seen a lot of guys bring into their game over the last few years, and vice versa, left footers having a right foot, just being able to keep the defence on their toes at all times, and then even I guess from an exit point of view as a 10 or 15, having a left foot if you're trapped in that left corner, to be able to just drop it onto your left foot nice and confidently, and have the same distance and accuracy as your dominant foot is such a weapon in the game these days. So it's something that I'm still working at and trying to bring into my game. But yeah, hopefully I wish I kind of started that when I was 5 years old rather than waiting until I was 18.